How was the feeling when you first time you tried rakia? Was it strong for you?
Yes. Frankly, I'm not much of a drinker.
So everybody's learning Serbian.
We're all learning it together. I try and I learn, and my kids are learning and my wife is learning. If you're hiring people from Serbia to save money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. I love that I could have a cup of coffee in Serbia and it lasts 4 hours. The Serbian community being as welcoming as it is, I just feel honored by that. Feel grateful to be accepted, and I can show up to SerbFest, I can show up in Belgrade. I think the trick is finding the things that you're good at, the things that you like, and the things that make money. And where they intersect is like where you want to be.
What's the difference for you between Novi Sad and Belgrade?
Well, the drivers.
How do you see the relationship between the US and Serbia evolving in the future?
I think that there are brighter days ahead. I think that things are going to move in the right direction.
Dragi moji, dobrodošli u novu epizodu Empire State Balkan podcasta. Ja sam vaš domaćin Aleksandar Stamenković, a sa mnom je danas neko ko ne priča srpski jezik, njegovo ime je Ben. On je Amerikanac koji je zaposlio jednog dečka Srbina koji se zove Miloš, a kasnije i ceo tim ljudi koji čine ljudi iz Srbije, i toliko toga ima lepog da kaže da sam stvarno jedva čekao da obavim ovaj razgovor, jer nekada neko toliko bolje vidi nas sa strane nego mi sami sebe, da je zaista meni bilo impresivno. Uživajte u ovoj epizodi i ukoliko vidite vrednost, kliknite na dugme subscribe, puno nam znači. Ben, thank you so much for taking your time to come to New York and to Empire State Balkan. Welcome.
Thanks, Alex. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here for sure.
I found you on LinkedIn, and I found out that you're doing great things, and you're speaking really nicely about Serbian people. And I'm glad I messaged you, and I realized how much things you have to say about Serbian people. So thank you for that. And I would like you to introduce yourself a little bit in a couple minutes, very briefly. What do you do, and who do you work with?
Well, I appreciate the very briefly warning. No, I'm Ben Donahower. I own a HubSpot CRM agency called No Bounds Digital. And I primarily have Serbian employees. And so I've learned a lot about Serbia over the years and your culture, and it's just been one of the things I'm most grateful for in my life, frankly. And so anytime I get an opportunity to say something nice about Serbia or Serbians, I do, and I'm glad you picked up on it on LinkedIn, and I'm glad we started up a conversation and sitting here and talking now.
Going back, your first conversation was with Miloš, right? Who is Miloš? How did you find him? Was it Upwork or somewhere else?
Right. Yeah. So many moons ago, before Upwork existed, there was something called Elance, precursor to it. I think it was actually acquired by it. And I had hired a random freelancer. At the time, I still had a day gig. I was working for the Pennsylvania State Legislature, and instead of moonlighting, I was a morning person, so I'd wake up at 4 a.m. and start working, and I thought, geez.
And this was your side hustle, right?
Right. At the time, it was my side hustle, and so I had found a freelancer to help me out with some small project. It was Miloš, and he did such an outstanding job. I thought, geez, if I had 10 Miloshes, I could rule the world. And that started a process where I was thinking about, well, who do I really want to work with my business? I kind of always had a tendency to think international and global. And from that, I started researching Serbia and other countries and really honed in on the incredible talent that's in Serbia, the incredible technical talent. At least at the time, Serbia had more developers per capita than any other country on the planet.
How did you know that?
You know what? Before ChatGPT, we had to Google things, and I found I had just done some research in who's going to be a good fit, who has the right skill set to be an effective employee at No Bounds Digital, and who's got the right cultural mindset to be a good fit for the kind of company culture that we were building at No Bounds.
Now, where is Miloš from?
Well, he was in Serbia, but I'm not sure if he was in Belgrade or Novi Sad or Niš or whereabouts he was, but certainly in Serbia. And of course, thinking, boy, if we had a pod of people that spoke the same language, were cut from the same cloth culturally and whatnot, that would make a whole lot of sense. So since then, we're 11-person companies and primarily Serbian employees. There's myself here in the States. There's an expat from Serbia living in California, and then we have someone else in Iowa as well. But the rest of the team is in Serbia.
Mm-hmm. So they're in Serbia, but there are some people who are Serbian but live here, right?
That's right.
Okay, so tell me something about the company. So what do you guys do?
That's a great question. So HubSpot is a CRM platform that's customer relationship management. It does a lot of things. It has sales tools. So we're talking about building sales processes, pipelines, sales enablement and automation. It was originally a marketing automation program. So it has a lot of tools around blogging, social media, Content Hub, which is a CMS, and AI-powered content creation tools. Service Hub, so it does tickets, it does knowledge base, and then I mentioned about Content Hub as well. So there's a CMS component to it and other content marketing tools. And then lastly, there's something called Operations Hub, which enables a lot of automation across all those platforms.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned like if you had 10 Miloshes when you met him, like you thought you're gonna run the world, you can run the world. But what is that Miloš had that you liked from the beginning, and what is something that you like the most about him?
A number of things. I think perhaps the thing that stood out most is the can do, I'm going to make it happen, I'm going to make it work no matter what attitude that I found with him, and that I found to be something that's culturally ingrained. I mean, when you go back hundreds of years, the Serbian people were ruled by the Habsburgs, ruled by the Ottoman Turks, and yet, like, there's this survival, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to survive and thrive attitude that I think is just a part of Serbian culture. And that's something that I experienced very early on, is that willingness to roll up your sleeves, get to work, and do what needs to be done.
So did you do some research about Serbs, and then you realized that once you saw that he has a lot of good things? Or
that's right. Yeah, maybe I'm a little too analytical for my own good, but when I started realizing that it made a lot of sense for all kinds of reasons to hone in on a particular part of the world, in a particular country. I mean, when you start employing people in 5, 6, 7 countries, you've got all the local laws and regulations that you need to know and understand, dealing in numerous other currencies and so forth. So there was at the time, certainly a thought that, boy, let's hone in on something. Let's make our lives a little bit easier by not having people disparately all across the globe here, but focus in on a particular place that I could learn to understand the local laws and the people, and build an effective company there.
After Miloš, who was the next person you hired and when?
I had hired 2 other individuals, and at this point they were still hired as a loose term because they were still freelancers at that point, and I had still, again, like this was a side hustle when I had brought on some additional Serbian talent. Stefano, who had run paid ads for us, I still keep in touch with him. In fact, he just told me he moved because I send him a Christmas card every year. And Nada, who was with me for 8, maybe even 9 years. So
when did it all start? Like a long time ago?
Yes. So No Bounds Digital itself has been around, I want to say around a decade, maybe a little bit more than that. I've been using HubSpot for 12 or 13 years. HubSpot itself is 17 years old, has been accepting customers for 15 years. That makes me an old man in HubSpot terms. And slowly but surely, it was something that I was doing for a long time while maintaining a full-time job. For the last 5 years, it's been my full-time vocation. And that's really when I was able to grow the team form a company over in Serbia and so on and so forth.
Did you get you got motivated to go to Serbia? Did you go?
Yes, I've been to Serbia twice now. Once, the first time actually was during the pandemic, and I spent a week there. And then most recently, I spent a full month there with my wife and 3 kids. It was incredible time. Everyone went, yes. Who would have thought 5 or 10 years ago that we'd be living the life that we're living now and have an interest in Serbia. Učimo srpsko 2 godina. Very, very little, very poor.
It's very difficult, right?
Serbian, but I try and I learn, and my kids are learning, and my wife is learning Serbian.
So everybody's learning Serbian.
We're all learning it together, and what a cool experience for us as a family to learn part of the culture by learning your language. And when we were over there, of course, experiencing New Year's Eve in a capital city of Belgrade was incredible. We got to go to the Badnjak service at St. Sava, which that's a humbling experience as well.
You stay for Christmas, the Serbian Orthodox.
That's right. Yep. Mm-hmm. So we were there for a full month. This January was super mild, which was amazing because we were able to get out and about for quite a bit until it got a little on the colder side. But it was a neat experience to have. Be there
what was special about Badnjak? Do you remember something that was interesting?
Well, just to be there for something that I knew of, a tradition that I understood, but to see it at St. Sava was just incredible. One of the things that I love about Serbia is it's truly a cultural experience for me as an American. It's truly different. It's not like crossing the border into Canada and eating some poutine or something like that. Mm-hmm. Like there's a...
What's the biggest difference?
A different sense.
When it comes to culture?
That's a very difficult question to answer. But if I had to pin some things down, and maybe it's a couple different things, but one is I feel a sense of nostalgia when I speak with Serbian people. So in some ways, I feel like it's in a very positive way. Like this is what almost reminded me of my childhood. There's strong family connections. There's strong religious connections. There's strong communities. And they surely exist here in the States. I'm not saying that doesn't happen, but in some ways it takes me back to, as I say, having that nostalgic feeling of a time when maybe I was a child and we still had family reunions and we still, went over to each other's houses for no reason, and those sorts of things. So I do feel a sense of community and belonging that has been lost a little bit here in the States and the West. So I think that's a cultural difference that I can feel, and maybe if I come up with some other ones in our talk, I'll mention those too. But that was the first one that comes to mind.
You have some interesting story when your wife was with you and someone gave her something. Was it like what was it? I forgot.
That's right. So as noted, it was a very mild January, and we made a mistake on one day that it wasn't so mild, that we were underdressed, and it became apparent to a older woman who was walking near us that my wife was cult. And there was a language barrier. She didn't speak much English, and we were able to get a little bit of Serbian in, but it was certainly hard to communicate. But she gave my wife her shawl, and she wouldn't hear anything of it to not take it. She's like, you need to be warm for your children. She had said a couple things like that, and you need to be able to take care of your kids. And lo and behold, she was taking care of, I'm not sure who this person was to her, but she was with somebody who was disabled as well. So here she is, she's taking care of other people and just looking for opportunities to really bless others. And we felt that for sure.
Got it. I still want to know, like, want to learn a little bit more about the business and how everything started and developed and everything else. So you said 5 years ago you left your job, and now you're just doing this, right?
That's right.
Besides that, you were doing side hustle, like you said, from
previously.
5 a.m. in the morning and 4 a.m. because you wake up early, right?
That's right.
And you had this entrepreneurial desire to grow, right? And the team started with Milos and more people, and you decided to kind of, you tell me if I'm not correct, but you kind of started to study this Serbian community and Serbian people and why they do the way they do it. Is there something else that you found that it can be like that became your motivation to build team with basically only Serbians?
Hey, these are some pretty good reasons. One, outstanding talent. Two, cultural alignment with what we're doing at No Bounds. I think that those were the driving reasons. And then, once you start experiencing some of Serbia's culture, you do feel that connection to it, and I'm already starting to feel an itch where like, when do I get back to Serbia again? And so I think that it's an emotional thing for me with that last piece, but then all the other stuff fall in line too. It just makes a ton of great business sense. I kind of like, frankly, that Serbia is a bit of a, people still think it's Siberia. People still think so people don't know where Serbia is. And maybe it's just my own personality where I'm like, I know the secret. I know the secret.
If you go back and the moment when you probably didn't know anything about Serbia and you probably thought it's Siberia or it's something else, how was that? Were you like, oh, this is just another guy from Upwork who might help, maybe not?
Yeah.
How was it? Tell me something. Let's go back.
Yeah, I think that has to be it. Like, I had no preconceived notions one way or another. I think, hey, here's this person that can help and I need help, and they said they can do it, and they can do it in the time that I need it done. Amazing. Let's move forward. So there was nothing there at the start, but it's just one of those things that has snowballed over time to, oh, well, maybe I should have a team of people there. Maybe we should all learn Serbian together as a family. Maybe we should, maybe we should spend a month there. It's one of those things that has just grown over time.
And how was your strategy like for marketing at the beginning for your company? So what did you guys do? What was your plan, let's say in the first couple of years?
How No Bounds Digital has grown and developed, I would love to say that it's because I'm an amazing businessman, but I think I've made a few very lucky decisions. One of which, of course, was to go all in on hiring a Serbian team. And frankly, I shouldn't take 100% credit for that as well. I know that my better half was, she's my consultant, if you will, and you talk to your family about things, and she was certainly somebody that when I was like, well, do we go with Serbia? Do we go with this other place or whatnot? It was pretty clear to her as well that it made sense to invest in Serbia. Now, the other smart decision that I made, and again, I think it's as good luck as much as it is anything else, is that I've tied my star to HubSpot. HubSpot is a company, when I first started using HubSpot, is a fraction of what it is today. I mean, it's a multi-billion dollar company. HubSpot itself has grown fairly substantially year over year. And so if at No Bounds, if we just do really good work, frankly, we're going to grow. Now, I want to grow a little bit beyond that growth rate that HubSpot has achieved. But as I say, it ended up being a very strategic and smart decision to go all in with HubSpot.
Got it. I remember that you told me you learned a word inat, Serbia, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any translation in English or not really?
Well, of course, you've had another more famous American who's a fan of Serbia, Charles Cather, on your podcast as well. And I think perhaps the easiest way of describing it would be spite, but it's one of those things that it's one of those things that I don't think you can put a good handle on it in English. So in some ways, I'm still learning and trying to understand what it means. And that's one of the fun things about looking at the Serbian culture from the outside, is that it's a puzzle in a good way. And I'm learning little bits and pieces of that puzzle day in and day out and week out as I work and spend time with Serbs.
So do you use that in your company too? Is there or no?
I think that there's a bit of it. Just that we are a roll your sleeves up and get to work kind of company, that we're a company that rough around the edges isn't quite the right word, but a lot of agencies, I think, have fancy decks and presentations, and sometimes maybe even in some ways are more strategically focused than us, but we really like to do the work. We really like to make things happen inside of HubSpot. Mm-hmm. And so that's something that is aligned well.
What is your specialty, yours and your team, like in HubSpot? Is there anything that is particularly that you're good at, and some things you probably want to improve?
Sure. Well, there's always room for improvement. Maybe that's a business owner's attitude in general, but there's always room for improvement. But if there's a couple things that we really hang our hat on, is we do have several accreditations from HubSpot: the onboarding accreditation, the migrations accreditation.
You guys have some rewards, right?
Right. So we have gotten those accreditations from HubSpot, and we've also won HubSpot's Technical Expertise Impact Award for 2 years running. There are only 2 other HubSpot agencies that can say that. One is a agency in Australia called Neighborhood, and then the other one is a very large agency based in North America, Media Junction. So that puts us in a pretty small group of people that can say that, and we can say that thanks to our talent in Serbia, for sure.
Is there something that you learn when you went to Serbia when it comes to like culture that you probably use afterwards? Maybe food, maybe something else.
Well, it's funny because my wife is keto, so she eats keto. She eats meat, she eats cheese, she doesn't eat a lot of, and we did very well at handling all of our various diets over in Serbia. I think we went to. There's a restaurant that we went 2 or 3 times, Lovac, which was delicious. We've got pictures. They just brought out meat upon meat there. But we've also brought back and attempted to, make some Serbian dishes over the years. Shopska, sarma.
You like shopska?
Yeah, we do. It is delicious, for sure. There's something about American cheese that isn't quite like cheese in Serbia, but we do our best to recreate it, for sure.
And you guys live very nearby a church, a Serbian church in Pennsylvania. Is that correct?
That's right. The St. Nicholas Serbian Orthodox Church in Steelton. That's right outside of Harrisburg, the state capital of Pennsylvania. We used to live 20 minutes away from it, but now we're a good 45 minutes. But we still get there for Serb Fest, and they've got summer picnics and whatnot as well. So it gives us a little opportunity to connect with the diaspora around here.
Yeah, don't be humble. I know you go there, you hang out with Serbian people there, and you are really supporting them, right?
Certainly. I mean, that's just it's nice to be a part of that community when we can.
How has your connection to Serbia shaped your entrepreneur journey and leadership style? Several
things. One is when you're working with different cultures, and of course we've got customers in in different countries as well, US, Canada, UAE, in Serbia and elsewhere. So gaining that skill set that you wouldn't otherwise get to be able to work on an international stage. We've got other customers elsewhere in Europe as well, UK, Ireland. We've had customers in Germany, Sweden, you name it. So it is
customers all over the world.
Yes, but primarily I would say North America and Europe, with concentrations on the East Coast and in the Balkans. So having that skill set, I think is unique for my team, and then for myself as the leader of No Bounds to be able to work across cultures, sell across cultures, support businesses in different markets. So that has certainly been, I think, a strategic advantage that No Bounds Digital has over some other companies. And we have that because of building that relationship between myself and our Serbian team.
What advice would you give to somebody else who, for example, who is maybe entrepreneur for this region and they don't know anything about the Balkan region and people there? What would you tell them?
So the entrepreneur itself is here in
who
US,
wants to probably
New York.
invest, or probably wants to also do the same thing like you did, spread their team, or like maybe build team from abroad.
Yeah. One of the things that I would say is that it makes sense also from a diversification perspective. Serbia has seen a ton of growth, especially in like the construction sector in the last several years. And the economy is different than what it was 10 years ago, for sure.
Is it still much cheaper to hire people from Serbia than here?
It is less expensive, but it's not as, I think, if you're hiring people from Serbia to save money, you're doing it for the wrong reasons. That's my perspective on it. If there are some savings, great. But frankly, the employment taxes are very high. I mean, 60% employment taxes. So if you're hiring somebody through an EOR, an employer of record, or you have your own entity in Serbia, you're paying a fair amount in taxes. And that certainly, even if the wages are lower than they would be in the United States, they certainly increase your overall overhead.
So you pay more taxes here.
Yeah, so there's certainly more taxes to be paid on the employer side for Serbian talent. There's also additional costs related to keeping up a business in Serbia that we don't have in the United States and whatnot as well, between bookkeepers and other work that needs to be done on the government compliance side. And that's really important to me. Obviously, I don't want to run afoul of any local laws and whatnot. So I take that very seriously, and we do everything by the book. Several years ago, Serbia instituted an independence test for entrepreneurs. And
what does it mean?
Well, the independence test was prior to that, and there were at least some concern in the government that businesses were hiring employees, calling them not employees, and then not paying the taxes associated with that. So there was an independence test that was implemented. I believe it's 9 separate tests.
It's by U.S. government.
No, this is a Serbian government independence test. So if an entrepreneur can say, hey, I'm responsible for my own equipment, I'm responsible for my own time, I'm responsible for my own results, I believe. There's 7 or 9 of these tests. And if they meet a majority of those criteria, they can say, hey, I'm actually an entrepreneur. But if they can't, then they're an employee by Serbian law. So that was put in place to, as I say, a concern of the Serbian government that there were some violations of people who should be classified as employees that were being classified as entrepreneurs and working as freelancers. I still have people that work as entrepreneurs who meet those those tests, and then I have a Serbian business entity as well, and most of our team is under that.
Got it. How do you see the relationship between the U.S. and Serbia evolving in the future?
This is something that I'm both extremely passionate about and think that there are brighter days ahead. I think that things are going to move in the right direction. Part of that's just time and getting different leaders in place, especially here in the United States. So, as in the future, I would love to see world according to Ben. Getting visas easier. That's not the case right now. Getting a double taxation treaty in place to make it easier for people to go back and forth and earn income and so on and so forth in both countries. And I think if not those things, it'll certainly, our relationship between the United States and Serbia, I think, is a strategic one, an important one, and one that, at least I certainly am hopeful that will continue to move in a positive way.
Do you think the relation between Serbia and the U.S. right now is pretty good or no?
That's an interesting question. I would put it maybe in the middle.
But it's being better than before.
Absolutely the case. And I think there's an understanding that the Balkans is a strategic region globally. I'm hearkening back to my government degree at Franklin and Marshall, right? The Balkans is a strategic part of the world. The United States can be a great trade partner for Serbia and the Balkans in general. So I think that there's a lot of opportunity, and it would be silly for both political leaders and business leaders to not understand the opportunity that exists there and, work towards a positive cooperation.
Mm-hmm. What do you think? What's the opportunity for the U.S. from that region? I know that you have, you see it, but what do you think that other people can see it? What do you think is that? What kind of opportunity is that?
Well, maybe I focus too much on my own business and not on the geopolitics of it all. But if I could say something, I think that there are new markets, of course, that trade goes both ways, and economic opportunity goes both ways. There could be some fantastic foreign direct investment. I see a lot of investment happening in Serbia right now, as I say, especially with new buildings and all those sorts of things. There's a lot of opportunity for the United States to invest in Serbia and the Balkans. And I think there's a lot of opportunity as well to open up the United States as a market to the Balkans just the same. So I would say that certainly trade relations is a big piece of it. Cultural exchange, as I said, personally, I think that's important, but it's a fantastic place to at least visit. And so I would love for more Americans to gain some awareness of the Balkans and spend some time in at least one of those countries to experience what it has to offer. Like
Croatia or Montenegro or Serbian, right? Or like some other countries.
That's right. If you want a beach, I guess you go to Croatia.
Have you ever
or
been to Croatia?
I have not. It's certainly on my my bucket list to hit more countries. Of course, just having the team in Serbia, I spend my time there. But I'd love to spend a little time on a beach too.
What are some misconceptions that people, especially Americans, have about Serbian or the Balkans in general?
I think the biggest one is a lack of awareness. How old am I? 41, 42? I was born in 1983. And so when we think about my age group and younger, I think that there's no real preconceived notions. We were all very young in the 90s. And so we don't really have much of a personal understanding of what happened with the United States and NATO and countries in the Balkans during that time. which means that we don't really have much of I would say we don't come with any sort of preconceived notions one way or another about the Balkans, about XU countries, about Serbia. Mm-hmm. And that means that really the biggest misconception is around awareness and understanding. I don't think that we know much about the religion of Serbia. We don't know much about the food or the people or any of that stuff. Right. So it's a lack of awareness.
Do you also think that that's only case with the Serbia or also with the rest of the world? Do you think that Americans actually know about the rest of the world enough?
Here in the United States, one of the things that we're blessed with is a huge country. And so you can live your whole life. It takes 6 hours to fly to California, and it takes 6 hours to fly to Europe. We live in a very large country, which is obvious. But the consequence of that is there's different cultures here. You can fly to Florida and Texas and California and Washington State and Alaska and Hawaii. So I think a lot of people end up living here and understanding maybe the nuance that exists inside of the United States and not really spending a whole lot of time elsewhere. Mm-hmm. And it's certainly understandable, but it's also been one of the great joys of my life to have experienced a different part of the world.
Is there any moment in your life when you're deeply honored to be part of the Serbian community?
Thanks for saying that. One of the things that's wonderful about the Serbian community is it's so incredibly welcoming. I'm not Serbian. My last name's Donahower. Though I think if I do enough genealogy, darn it, maybe I'll find somebody that used to at least live in that region. Why not? But the Serbian community being as welcoming as it is, I just feel honored by that, frankly. Feel grateful to be accepted, and I can show up to SerbFest, I can show up in Belgrade, I can talk to team members and them know that I have a legitimate care and concern for the Serbian people and a desire to learn more about your culture. So I think just in that certainly makes I certainly have a lot of gratitude that's even just related to that. Mm-hmm. Couple things that stand out as being fun things are when you run into somebody who is Serbian. I've had a couple experiences like that here stateside. They have been really interesting. I can talk about them if you'd like, or if I'm getting a little ahead of myself, that's fine too. But one time I took the train in here. I was taking a train and studying Serbian on a app, Mango, and a woman looked right behind herself and saw me and said, "You're speaking Serbian." She's like, "I'm Serbian." And that sort of thing sticks with you. Another case in point, I was in line at Lowe's. I was at the hardware store, and I heard this accent. I'm like, that is a Slavic accent for sure. Okay. And then I get closer. I'm like, ooh, that's a Serbian name on, a Balkan name on her name tag. And lo and behold, I was like, getting a little nervous because, as you know, my Serbian is terrible. But I went for it. I was like, Dobar dan, and Kako si, and then, things like that. And she was like, ooh, you speak some of my language. Sure enough, she's Bosnian. And, we talked for 5 minutes. It made her day. It made my day. It made my week. So just, those little tiny things by understanding a little bit of the culture. And as I mentioned earlier, I think most people who would have gotten in line at Lowe's would have no idea that her name was a Southern Slavic name, somebody that was clearly from the Balkans. So those sorts of things are neat.
And now I'm also curious about why would you make your kids learn Serbian? Is that a plan for you to maybe build even bigger team, or maybe to expand more, or is there anything else?
Well, at some level, as a family, I think it's neat to learn stuff together. So we're learning karate together. We all take karate together, you know, and we're all learning Serbian together. So there is this aspect where I don't necessarily have something to teach my kids here. We're all in this together. Mm-hmm. So that's neat. I enjoy that component of it. But the other piece is building that cultural awareness, and I don't want to say contrarian in me, but you know, as a family, I mentioned earlier, like, oh, I know the secret. Just being able to experience a unique culture, the culture that we wouldn't otherwise maybe hear about or learn about if my kids were in public school or, you know, around town. You know, certainly you might see people from different cultures in and around our community, but not necessarily the Serbian culture. So it's a unique thing that they can experience. And I want to give them that opportunity to, you know, learn Serbian. And of course, that unlocks a unique skill, a skill that not a lot of people can say they have. And that I think will be certainly valuable to them in the long run, whether their career or their lives are as intertwined with Serbia as my own is.
Mm-hmm. So did you meet your team also in person when you went there, or?
That's right. That was first on my list of things to do, is certainly meet the team.
What did you guys do together?
We did a bunch of stuff together. So of course we had a in-person Christmas party. It's not often that I was able to do that.
So you were there in January, right?
That's right. So we went to Ambar, and that was really neat, which also has a couple restaurants here in the United States as well. So I've been to Ambar here in DC, and also in Serbia, which I think is neat. Mm-hmm. So we did that. We spent essentially, if there was something that they wanted to do, I did it. So it was really about entertaining.
Did you drink with them?
And well, I don't think you can go to Serbia without having a little bit of rakia or whatnot. So certainly.
Do you like it?
The honey rakia is an excellent choice. Slivelica is excellent. I mean, certainly, like most alcohols, I think it's an acquired taste. It's fun because I have some bottles downstairs in my bar, and you know, when I have people over, that's part of the cultural exchange. Yeah, so I have some here, and there's a bit of a fun cultural exchange there too. I'll have someone over to the house, and like, well, I know you've never tried anything like this, and they get to try it as well. So it's certainly something that I think is core to the social fabric of Serbia, and I get to be a little ambassador when people are over for a holiday or a cookout or just something fun as well.
How was the feeling when first time you tried rakia? Was it strong for you?
Yes. Frankly, I'm not much of a drinker. I might have a little alcohol here and there, but if I have 5 drinks in a year, that's probably my max. So it certainly has a bit of a kick to it.
What is your plan for now in the near future when it comes to your company and stuff? Do you want to grow more, or how do you see your company in, like, let's say in a couple of years from now?
You know, we continue to grow, and so I'm certainly blessed that we've seen growth, and I'm seeking more growth. And I think the thing that's really enabling growth is it's not the Ben Donahower show. We have grown to the point where it's not just the Serbian team doing day-to-day work, but taking leadership roles. Katarina leads our success team. We have a gentleman, Stefan, who has been doing success work for 5 years now.
His name is Stefan?
Yeah. And he is moving into a sales function as well. And so by having that sort of leadership team grow through the years as well has been a tremendous benefit to No Bounds Digital, and is the kind of thing that's going to enable us to be able to continue to grow in the future.
So you said that sales is one of your specialties. What is something that you think is the most important for people when it comes to sales?
Just in general, there's a couple things that I would say. One is have something good to sell. That
So
can't
the
hurt.
product has to be good.
Two is, I think building a rapport with people is critical. Learning how to have a conversation like a normal human when you're on Zoom with somebody, trying to talk about your services, trying to understand what their needs are. And that's a key piece too, is just really when you have that rapport, when you're able to have a nice conversation with somebody, a normal conversation with somebody, you ultimately elicit what you really need to understand, like what their challenges are, what they're trying to achieve by buying HubSpot, by working with No Bounds Digital to fix the challenge that they're having inside of their HubSpot instance, et cetera, et cetera. So, and then the last piece is just to do the work. I think sales is one of those things like public speaking or something that people get anxiety over, or they don't want to feel sleazy. But the truth is sales can be a lot of fun.
Is it fun for you?
It's fun for me. It's definitely fun for me. I used to be, in a past life, even before I worked in government, I worked in political campaigns. And the thing that I loved about political campaigns is on election night, you either win or you lose. Now, winning's fun, but there's this nice little binary component to it where it's like, okay, well, I got the result I wanted, or I didn't get the result I wanted. And in sales, it's the same thing. And so there's this easy point at which you can say, man, I can celebrate this win because somebody has trusted No Bounds Digital to build their website or to implement something inside of HubSpot. So it's fun, and it's also an honor too, because as I say, people are trusting you. I mean, they maybe have 1, 2, 3, 5, who knows how many phone calls with me, and maybe a subject matter expert internally at No Bounds will join the call and whatnot. But at that point, then they sign a contract, and they need to believe and trust that we're going to do the things that we say we're going to do.
Got it. And what is your main role right now? What do you do the most?
Hiring, sales, and I would say overall business strategy are the things that I'm most focused in. Still working with our success team here and there, helping out where I can.
And success team is like it's the main team, right?
That's right. Those are the folks
they also
that
sell, right? They also work in sale, or you sell the most?
Everybody always works in sales.
I know.
Yeah, I just get.
You're right.
I'm just.
You always sell, even now.
But their primary function is to do the work inside of HubSpot and have that direct relationship with our customers.
All right.
So they meet with our customers. They meet with our clients. They execute on the projects that we've agreed to. And then we also have a lot of retainer customers where we handle that kind of day in, day out work inside of HubSpot, and then projects as they come along. But, I sort of said in jest, but of course, if there's opportunities for us to grow the relationship that we have with our customers, we're also responsible for saying, hey, maybe you should talk to Ben. Maybe you should talk to Stefan about, either purchasing a new HubSpot hub or doing this new project inside of your account, whatnot.
And what is the biggest, when you look at your clients' pain, what is the biggest thing that you guys solve? Like, I know you solve a lot of problems there, but what is the problem number one that you guys solve there?
I tell you the thing that we like to do the most, and that's do things that have never been done in HubSpot before. I had mentioned about Operations Hub. Operations Hub is kind of a mystery to a lot of people, but we have been able to leverage it because what it ultimately does is take HubSpot's automation feature workflows, and then you can add code to it. And
explain to me.
Once you use a HubSpot,
simple.
Once you use the HubSpot workflow, and you can write your own custom code, what can't you do? Meaning, Operations Hub has a couple things that are baked into it that are kind of standard features. Boy, somebody types in Ben's name, lowercase b, it'll fix that sort of thing. It'll proper case them. Okay. There's some data hygiene oriented things that are bread and butter Operations Hub work, like deduplicating contacts based upon phone number. HubSpot's primary key is email. So email is necessarily getting deduped by function of how HubSpot operates. But other pieces that might indicate a duplicate, you need to use Operations Hub. But we've also used Operations Hub to create timesheets, a timesheet application. We've used Operation Hub to create a really complex and automated renewal system for an insurance technology company. Those are the two things that we won the Technical Expertise Impact Award for. So those sorts of capabilities that maybe HubSpot wasn't necessarily built to do, but it sure can do with the right talent, are the things that we like to do. And shout out to Nenad, who's principally responsible for the technical work there, and also Vesna and Yelena and others who've been involved in those projects.
Got it. So for example, you guys also build website. You do a lot.
That's right. I mean, if there's HubSpot has always or originally started off as a marketing automation program, as I noted before. And so they were quick to build a website functionality. At the time, they called it the content operating system, funny enough. And then they revamped that product, put a lot of R&D into it, created a much more feature-rich CMS. So a CMS, think of, WordPress would be the market leader there. But there's other companies, Wix, Webflow, you name it, now on the market.
What's the difference between Webflow and, for example, Webflow is not like a WordPress, right?
That's right. Yeah, it's a different system. And one of the huge...
What do you like better?
Well, I bleed orange sprockets. HubSpot's logo is an orange sprocket, so I say I bleed orange sprockets. The valuable thing about HubSpot as a tool is it's not just a tool, it's a platform. And so when all of your marketing and sales and service efforts are natively integrated, that unlocks a lot of value. So take, for example, someone goes on your website and you can get an email. Your sales team could get an email that, hey, I might have had an open deal with this person 6 months ago and they said, sorry, it's not the right time. But because they're in HubSpot and because you could have a workflow that automated something like this, that person comes back on your website and alerts that salesperson. That's hey, alarm bells should be going off to that salesperson that it is that individual who it wasn't the right time 6 months ago. It's probably the right time now, or it just might be the right time very, very soon because they're out lurking on your website again. That's just kind of a little drop in the bucket of the efficiencies and capabilities that you unlock when you go all in on a platform like HubSpot.
Great. Okay. I'm not going to go too deep about this because I feel like this is going to be more about your connection to Serbian community. And thank you so much, Ben, for saying such a nice words about them. And I'm so glad to hear that the team is doing well and then you're very happy about it. Is there anything else that we didn't cover when it comes to like this relationship between you and the Serbian people, and maybe your visit to Serbia that you wanted to share something else? Maybe I missed something.
There's so much we did when we were in Serbia. I think every day we were running around Kalemegdan. We went to Fruška for a couple days.
Oh, how did you like that?
That was wonderful. Our Serbian language teachers from Novi Sad, Layla. And so we
Did you go to Novi Sad?
So I was in Novi Sad in 2021 myself when I was when I took a very short trip to Serbia. And so that was nice. But my family, unfortunately, this last time around, we didn't get into Novi Sad itself, but we did go spend a couple days in Fruška, which was, you know, I mean, what a beautiful, serene place to be. For the size that Serbia is, it has so much to offer. I've unlocked 1% of what there is to see and do. So certainly had a lot of wonderful experiences with my family this time around, and I'm excited to try some other places too in Serbia. I'm looking forward to Subotica, Niš, other places as well. So spent some time in Avila a few years ago, which of course isn't all that far from Belgrade. That's a beautiful place too. I see why a lot of people have a little home out in the country there too.
About Novi Sad, what's the difference for you between Novi Sad and Belgrade?
Well, the drivers are a little more my speed in Novi Sad than they are in Belgrade. That's for sure.
Like New York and Pennsylvania, right?
That's right, like New York and Pennsylvania. So getting from the train station to here, I sort of, in fact, I was thinking that very thing. I was like, you know what? I hope I can make it these 2 miles to get to speak with Alex with the way this traffic is. And of course, sometimes you feel that same way in Belgrade. But in Novi Sad, maybe a little bit more how I'm used to people driving for sure.
Right. When it comes to Belgrade, did you see some like similarity between Belgrade and New York, or how did you see that?
Boy, I hope I don't misspeak by saying this, but to me, there's so much within Belgrade. Like there's little communities and towns within Belgrade. So you'd be in a certain section and you'd think, well, you know, Belgrade waterfront, this is so Western and whatnot and new and whatever else. And then you'd be in another place and you know, see a different time period and a different element of the culture. So one of the things that I really liked about Belgrade was being able to experience different districts and communities inside of the city of Belgrade. And I think maybe like that, New York and Philadelphia and other certainly major cities have that same sort of component to it, where you can be one place and then you walk a few blocks and you're thinking like, this is a different town almost.
What is the best business advice you ever received in your life, and why?
Maybe it's my nature, but I've always been an entrepreneurial person. So I think in some ways business owners and entrepreneurs struggle to be able to take advice in the first place, because we like to forge our own path. But a few things that I think that I've learned as I've gotten older and wiser. One is to find mentors and to seek out advice. You know, here we have something called the Service Corps of Retired Executives, or SCORE, and businesses can get SCORE mentors and you can communicate with them from time to time. And that's a service that I've used to be able to, you know, just bounce some ideas off of people. I think it's really important. And one of the other lessons that I've learned is investing in your team is half the battle, if not the whole game. Because if you treat your team right and you respect them and you ask for their opinion and you value their opinion, that doesn't mean that you need to do every idea they have or always say yes to every request that they have. But focusing in on that means that they're going to do a really good job. So I couldn't say where I've heard that advice, but it's often in juxtaposition to the customer is always right. Mm-hmm. And make no bones about it, we are a very customer-focused organization, but that's the success manager's responsibility, is to build those positive relationships with customers. And it's my responsibility to build those relationships with our team and make sure that our team is cohesive and productive.
That's a great advice. Would you be able to sell me your service for my business, for a podcast, for example?
Yeah, one of the benefits of HubSpot is it starts with free. So regardless of a business's financial wherewithal, there is a use case or a potential use case for HubSpot for a business. And at the same time, HubSpot's the #1 CRM for scaling companies. It's a enterprise grade platform at the same time. So one of the things that's really, really valuable about HubSpot is small businesses can use it, large enterprises can use it, and it grows along with you. Mm-hmm. We have done a lot of migrations and other onboardings from companies who they started off with another CRM and their business grew, their podcast grew, their whatever else grew, mm-hmm. and they outgrew their CRM, they outgrew their technology. But with HubSpot, it grows along with you. So there's, as I say, there's free tools, there's starter tools, and then which have some basic automation, removes branding, et cetera, et cetera. Mm-hmm. And then once you move into the Pro Suite and Pro Tools, you get a lot of that automation that I talked about earlier with Operations Hub, workflows, sequences, which are like sales outreach emails. And then, once we get into true enterprise grade, you get a lot of additional security capabilities, field level permissions, HIPAA compliance, sensitive data, Snowflake integration. So HubSpot is a powerful platform that works for a lot of different companies.
Do you think that people have to believe in their product themselves in order to sell? And second question, to sell well, to really sell well? And the second thing is, what do you think, what are some most important questions when it comes to selling?
Yeah. I do think product knowledge and believing in your product are very important. In fact, one of the things that I really screwed up as a business owner is I had hired Marco and Mary Lou to be a dedicated sales team several years ago. And they are and were excellent salespeople, but they didn't have HubSpot product knowledge. And that was my mistake. I had sort of undersold the need to know the ins and outs of HubSpot, to believe in HubSpot, and to be able to solve complex problems in real time, in conversation with prospective buyers. So I sort of made the mistake, and sometimes I do this still. I'll be in a sales conversation. I'm like, it's not rocket science, but to some people, HubSpot is rocket science. They can't figure it out. They've got a problem that they can't solve. And so having that product knowledge, I think, is absolutely key. It's one of the things that does absolutely differentiate a good seller from a great seller. And usually product knowledge and being passionate about the product go hand in hand. There's a positive correlation there for sure. And you had a second component to that.
Yeah, second component was, what are the best questions in sales? Like when you ask somebody questions in order to understand their needs and stuff, what questions do you ask?
Well, this might sound silly, but how can I help? I want to be helpful in the sales conversation.
And you really try to understand that person, right?
Certainly. And what that initial question sounds and is surface level, the key is to keep going. So when I say, hey, Alex, how can I help? And you tell me how I can help. And then I say, well, that's interesting. Can you tell me more about that? Or I saw you, or I heard you say this. What do you mean by that? So it is that second layer set of questions that really matter. And they don't have to be complicated. As I say, I just gave you probably half the questions that I asked.
Right. The thing is, I realized that people who come from Balkan region, they're not trained to ask questions like that. Mm-hmm. What I found in New York, people are trained to be like, a lot of people from Balkan will say they're like robots. Like they know how to sell. They know how to ask questions. They know how to behave the way they probably don't even think in order to sell. But I understand, like I worked with a lot of Americans now, I get it. But the thing is, like, it doesn't come naturally for us. There is something that I found that we have, and it's, if we don't believe, if there is no that like energy that we don't believe in a product, it's very hard for us to be like, sometimes I say every single American is a great actor. And in a way it is for me. But it's very interesting to see how Americans are selling so easy. Versus like for us, we have to be really like trained, and we have to push a lot of work and to be in uncomfortable situation. And of course, more sales, of course, we're going to become better. But a lot of people don't have that naturally from Balkan region. I'm not saying we're not good. I think we're excellent salesmen people. I found that for my industry, a lot of trainers are the best trainers in Europe coming from Eastern Europe. There's a few reasons why. One is like because we have like kind of genetics that we look good and like tend to like maintain muscle mass, and usually we used to train before much more than other people and stuff. But at the second time, we do care. There's that care that it's real about people that I think that also like kind of, and of course there's fear, fear of like losing it all, you know, especially if you like immigrant, you came all the way from Serbia, Bosnia, Croatia, or any other country, Ukraine, Russia, doesn't matter. You want to win, you don't want to lose. So yeah, there's combination of these three things, but the one that I actually found that it's not easy for us to do this sale. That's why I asked you, how do you guys do that?
I appreciate you sharing that. And in fact, this is perhaps the most interesting part of the conversation so far for me is hearing some of those sorts of things, because that's very true. I think one of the things that I have noticed about American culture versus other cultures, perhaps in general, but also certainly juxtaposed to Serbian culture, is, you ask me how I'm doing amazing. I'm always doing incredible. And it's that sort of exaggerated response you said about like Americans acting. So I can be in a sales conversation and mimic the other person. So if they're high energy, I can be high energy. If they're maybe more cerebral and laid back, I can be cerebral and laid back.
But that's a sales tactic also.
Certainly, yeah, to be able to do that. But as you say about Serbians having maybe a challenge, but also being very good at sales, to your point, like when there is a genuine belief and a genuine passion, that absolutely comes out. In the sales process, or even with my success team too. I mean, they're so passionate about coming up with the best possible solution inside of HubSpot. Sometimes I need to hold them back. I'm like, hey,
I know.
Is that in the contract or what? Because there is that passion, and you can see it in their work.
Yeah, I realized it for myself. I told everybody, like in the last year, maybe year and a half, that I don't want to sell anything in my life, even to try to. I love sales, by the way, even though I'm trying to sell without selling. That's kind of an interesting thing, because I believe that if there's that passion inside and you really believe in a product, then also self-confidence comes itself. That's number one.
Sure.
Number two, if you're like, prove yourself so many times when it comes to like something, it's easy to be confident about the product, whatever that is. It can be my service. But what I'm saying is, if I don't believe that's, first of all, if I'm not educated about the product and I don't believe that product that like works well, it's almost impossible for me to even go in a sale process. But if I believe that something works, I will never stop like to try to sell to somebody. Like, for example, I am trying to get somebody like on this podcast. And these people, they're busy. They don't have time to watch. They don't know what kind of story it is. They have no idea. Some Serbian guy started a podcast. I don't want to be part of it. I don't want to show off and stuff, but this is not show off. If I know this is, they're actually important people for our audience to hear them and to learn something from them, I'm never going to stop trying to get them here. I might not succeed, but I will try a million ways to get to them. So yeah, I think it's a good point for you as well to understand the culture, because we are not trained as a kids to act excellent, or to be like, as you said, to mimic other people, or to be like, as you mentioned, oh, how are you? I'm feeling great. They don't even listen to you. Or that it doesn't exist in Serbia, like that's something that I found super fake here. And then, of course, I'm not going to say bad things about it. I just realized that it's not real. People don't really listen to you the way you feel. And I started talking to people very differently. They ask me, how are you? I'm like, then I take a few seconds and I go, you know what? Today I feel kind of like, I don't know, I'm a little pissed. My memory card today. I told you today, my memory card took off. Like I took off my laptop and I took this memory card off and I got pissed. What should I do? I'm not going to say I feel great, But anyway, I just wanted to tell you it's the difference. There is a difference between cultural, in between Serbian and US when it comes to that, for sure. Yeah. It can be useful for you for sale process.
I appreciate that. I mean, that was a great point. And you had also said something about immigrants as well, and fear being a strong motivator. And in fact, we had a little discussion about that before this podcast as well. And I forget if it was on the phone or just LinkedIn or whatnot. And that was on that's right. And I thought that was really interesting, because when I look at the diaspora and when I look at immigrant communities, maybe in general, there's just something about them that I think is powerful. And you had said, geez, it's fear. It's fear of not actually
we talked about it.
Succeeding. Right. And that was a new insight for me, because I also feel like the people that work at No Bounds, they may not be immigrants. They were born and raised in Serbia, but they're certainly doing something countercultural. Their parents never said, "Oh boy, you should work virtually for." an international company with entities in Serbia and the United States. Like, that's just not something that would have entered somebody's mind.
Look, they might want to make, like, for example, it's easier to work remotely. Maybe they're gonna make slightly more money, but I believe there's a lot of amazing and talented people from that region. Why I told you about the fear, because imagine you have a kid who, let's say me. So I was playing soccer for 14 years. I left Serbia after I became, let's say, the most successful trainer in the city when it comes to number of clients. All of a sudden, I came to New York expecting so much, without even speaking a lot of English. And then I came here and I was like, oh my God. I mean, the gym was really bad. Pay was less than I was making in Serbia, and I was miserable. And now we come to the point that I was telling you before.
Yeah.
What happens to me? Depression, and number one emotion is fear. If you go back, you didn't make it. If you stay here, like you have to kind of really, really push so much to make it in this city. So you either make it or not. This New York is for everybody the same, but especially if you don't speak English and you come from, the rest of the world.
Yeah.
Again, it's amazing. This is amazing city for all different cultures, and it's like welcome everybody if you're good, if you have a good talent and stuff. But you have a huge fear of, of not being able maybe to make it, and that fear is a huge driver. You never forget that. That's for sure a true story.
It is fear is a powerful tool.
And a motivator too. It's a great motivator.
Yeah.
It motivates people for sure.
The funny thing is, I think sometimes those sorts of maybe negative motivators, they ultimately might turn into something that's more of a positive motivator, but they could certainly start that way.
Right.
It's maybe not just a fear piece of making it, but it's also, oh boy, I'm going to show them.
right.
Too.
We go to Enot again.
Right. Yes. That's the Enot.
What is the worst possible business advice you ever received in your life?
Probably the worst business decision that I made. And I'm not sure if it came from advice or not, but No Bounds Digital, we're a terribly named agency because initially the idea was, well, if you need it, we do it. And so maybe at first that's not a horrible thing, because as a business, you go through different stages of growth. And when you're first starting out, you don't even really know what you're doing or what you're supposed to be doing. And so you try different things, but you had mentioned about sports. Maybe you try playing soccer. Maybe you try horse riding. Maybe you try karate. Maybe you try all these different things. And then eventually you land on the thing that you're actually good at and that you enjoy. But
do you think you enjoy because you're good at?
Yes and yes. People love to do things that they're good at. There's a big overlap between those two things. Sometimes there's not, right. But I think the trick is finding the things that you're good at, the things that you like, and the things that make money.
That's not easy.
And where they intersect is like where you want to be.
Right.
Because you could do things that you like and that are good at, and here we are in New York City. You need to be able to make a halfway decent wage, or you're going to be living in a cardboard box. Right. And on the other hand, you could do things that you're good at and don't like, and they just rip the soul out of you. Who wants to do that too?
If there's one thing that you can bring from Serbia or Balkan region to US, and one thing can be anything, it can be cultural, it can be something else, from US to Serbia, what it would be and why?
I love that I can have a cup of coffee in Serbia and it lasts 4 hours. That's wonderful. That's wonderful to me. Like, just to be able to build that kind of connection with somebody. And that's something that we can have here, but geez, sometimes you don't know if the coffee's going to be, as I say, 30 minutes or 4 hours. Those are powerful times. I mean, some of the best conversations that I've had have been, at a cafeteria or something like that over an espresso or coffee. So just being able to relax and enjoy someone else's company like that is powerful. I'd love to see more of that here. And then if there is one of the things that I love about the United States, and you said this about New York City, is like you're either going to make it or you're not. And so having that sort of feeling of opportunity, that you can strike out on your own, or you can do something a little bit different. And, you know, maybe there's even some social pressure to conform. There's still social pressure to conform. But there's less of that here. And there's more of a willingness or a desire or an openness to try something new. And that's one of the things I love about the United States as well, and would love to see that in Serbia just the same.
So you bring that to Serbia.
No doubt.
What is the book that you probably gave away the most to somebody, or the book that you like the most?
Not necessarily a Serbian connection with this one, but
doesn't need to be.
There's a great business book called The E-Myth by a gentleman named Michael Gerber. He's in his 70s now. It's a classic business book. I've read it numerous times now, and I actually avoided reading it as a kid, right? As a kid, I would go into the library and pick out books and read them over the summer and whatnot. And the subtitle to the E-Myth is something about small business. And I thought, well, who wants a small business? I want a big business. So I didn't read it. But eventually I read it, and I was like, this is fascinating. And in some ways, businesses don't need to fall within this mold, but it taught me a lot about organizational behavior for business. As I say, this gentleman, Michael Gerber, he starts with an interesting example or metaphor of someone who bakes pies, loves baking pies, is great at baking pies. You know, you love physical fitness. You're great at physical fitness. You're great at teaching people physical fitness. But then that person with the pies says, well, why am I working for someone else to bake pies? I should have my own business baking pies. And then, you know, I could get rid of this boss that bothers me and tells me how I should be making my pies when I should be making pies, you know, the way my grandmother taught me or something. And so she strikes out on her own and rents a retail space and starts her own business. But then she realizes, or what Gerber calls a tactician or technician, suffering from an entrepreneurial seizure. Because being a baker, owner of a bakery, is not making pies all the time. It's interior decorating, it's marketing, it's sales, it's cleaning, it's hiring people, it's
construction,
you know, payroll, and it's accounting, and it's construction, and it's all these other things. And so then you get knee deep in it, and you're thinking like, holy smokes, what did I do here? I just wanted to bake pies because I love baking pies. And the only way that you could bake pies is if you spend 80, 90 hours a week, because you're baking the pies, and then you're doing those 100 other things that they already talked about. So one of the things that he discusses in this book is, you know, thinking about the different functions and roles in an organization and in a business, understanding where people fit in that. Ultimately, he's a big proponent of something like McDonald's and the franchise system, because there's a system to it. Like there's a process behind it. So when you think about McDonald's in that way, it's actually kind of a fascinating business model. And so that's been a powerful book for me, and something that I've always come back to when I want to think about, well, how do we do things better at No Bounds Digital?
Is that your most repeated question for yourself?
How we do things better? Yeah, I think that has to be something that I'm. How do we do things better? How do we stop doing things that we shouldn't be doing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, my business mentor says, "What else can we do? What else can we do?" he has a team of people like a couple times a day, and then comes in and said, what do you think? What else can we do to sell more? What else can we do to be better? What else can we do to make a better product? It's a very simple question, but it's very powerful.
No doubt.
Question for me, if you want, and that's like something that I do with my people here. But zero pressure. If you don't want to, it's fine.
No, I got all kinds of questions. Why not?
No, like you have only one.
Only one. Son of a gun.
I'm kidding. Whatever you want.
Just kidding. So why did you come to the United States?
Opportunity. I reached my limit when it comes to personal training. I had, when I left, I think 28 or 30 clients in niche, Serbia.
Yep.
That was my limit. I didn't know about what scaling business means. I didn't know about, I always wanted to be a business owner. And I'm still not. Actually, I am, but
you are.
The thing is, I still, train people in person, and I still, do this and stuff. The thing is, I wanted more. And I trusted my business mentor, who was not like on a paper my business mentor, but was one of my clients who is still very successful entrepreneur. And I listened to all his advices, like really, really like strictly. And he said to me, this city is not for you anymore. I'm not saying it's bad, but you are like literally, you reached your limit. So we had two choices. I had to go to Dubai or go to New York. First, he said, I don't think you're mentally strong enough for New York. And then after a year, he said, I think you are. So yeah, he was the one who recommended. Then, I got hired here and started from scratch again. And that hurts. Hurts so much because my ego was destroyed from super high level of like training 28 people, easy, not really promoting myself. Clients were coming, and to zero, which is normal, but then it was so bad. It was not a good place. And but it was probably a good place for me at the beginning. And then from there, I had to, prove myself 3 more times. In that place, I changed that location, went somewhere else. And then I got to Equinox. From Equinox, after 4 years working there, I said to myself, you have to work for yourself. It's enough. So then it's been 4 or 5 years that I train people on my own. Outside, like just private.
Yeah. Funny enough, I do follow Serbian business leaders when again, Mr. Miskovic, Philip Zepter. Obviously, there's some very wealthy Serbs who have done amazing things in business. And so I do think there's at least a subculture there, even though I said I would bring that sort of entrepreneurial spirit from the United States to Serbia. There's certainly people that have built amazing companies over there too. Do you think that that's possible? Do you think more businesses will grow and succeed in Serbia, and Serbians can stay in Serbia and take things to the next step?
Definitely, yes. More people go back to Serbia. There is a lot of now organizations. They're actually welcoming people from all over the world back to Serbia, and also help them to go through their, not just emotionally, but also mentally, but also like kind of like business wise. There's a lot of advisors who are helping people to bring their business back and help each other. I think that's great. There's amazing thing that I found a month ago, it's called tačka povratka, which means kind of like if you go back, they will help you to understand, to be with other people who were abroad and then came back, and all necessary steps they need to do in order to feel welcome and to start their life again back. So I definitely believe that it's going to be a lot of growth. I think IT industry is really picking up in that region, and I don't think they're different than people here. And more people I talk to, especially my podcast, because they're very ambitious. They don't want to copy other people. They want to be as good as they are, and even better. They want to compete with them. So I feel like English is becoming better. Everything is becoming better. With that, I think it's going to be more people who will want to go back. Again, there is a lot of work in the system. The system is not great, but it's becoming better. I believe that everything is going to go in a good direction. So yeah, my answer to your question, yes. And it will be more and more. And there are so many amazing people who are doing incredible things. Just on my podcast, I had like so many people who have like hundreds and hundreds of people who work for them, and they're from that region. So yes, I see potential, big potential.
No doubt. I mean, you interviewed Charles Cather, who is learning Serbian now, but he lived in Serbia for years and years, and
15 years.
Didn't have to learn any really much Serbian at all because of the people learning English in Serbia. And most of my team members, that you learn primarily British English, which, but most of my team members, they say, well, I learned English from watching TV shows, and I learned how to have an American accent from playing video games.
Yes, it's true. I heard it so many times.
Yeah, and that's so fascinating. I started playing whatever video game with people, and they were Americans and wherever else, and we all had to talk to each other, and that's how I learned English. And it's wild how someone can get such excellent English. I mean, we're talking C2 plus, very little accent, if any. Realizing how terrible my Serbian is, I just have such an appreciation for speaking with someone over in Serbia who maybe even has never set foot in the United States and speaks English as good as I do.
Yeah, they needed more. Ben, thank you, man, so much for taking time to come from Pennsylvania. I really appreciate that. And I really appreciate your nice words about Serbian community, Serbian people, and people who work with you, and also like some nice insights about Serbia and stories and everything else. I think this is very valuable for people to hear. I love interviewing people who are talking things about Serbia, because we need to hear this more. If we were grateful for what we have back home and for what we actually bring inside ourselves, we'll be much happier place. But I believe, and that's why I'm doing this, that everything can become even better. And if you surround yourself with positive people who talk nicely about culture and about region and about everybody else, that everything will improve. And again, thank you. And I wish you all the best with your company, your people, to grow even more and to achieve all your results in the future.
Thank you, Alex. I really appreciate it. It's easy enough to brag about my team, that I could do that all day long. And it's an honor to be on your podcast. You've spoken with a lot of incredible people in the Serbian community, and I'm humbled that you'd speak with me.
Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. Sad ću malo preći na srpski. Hvala puno što ste ostali do kraja. Nadam se da ste uživali. Danas smo pričali na engleskom jer moj gost nije neko ko može da priča srpski. Ukoliko vam se sviđa naš sadržaj i sve ovo što radimo, kliknite na dugme subscribe puno nam znači da ovaj kanal raste, a da mi dovodimo sve kvalitetnije goste, a mi se već vidimo sledećeg utorka. Hvala na pažnji i doviđenja.